New Hampshire is tonight, and we'll be checking in with the results as soon as they start rolling in, which will be in just a little bit short of an hour as we go through the rest of the news of the day. And we've got plenty of that to go over as well. Ron DeSantis is out of the race. And I recorded a video autopsying his campaign saying that I didn't know when he was going to get out of the race at the same time that he was getting out of the race. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what effect this has on the race, where it goes, and what is going to happen tonight. The Chinese create a mutant variant of coronaviruses with a 100% fatality rate. For reasons unknown. Right before an election year. Is anybody shocked by this at this point? I know I'm not at this point. But we'll go over that, what's happening there, and what we do with this. Biden attempts to vote by dropping overdraft fees as low as $3, putting their fingers in the private market and seeing how it goes from there. And the border continues to rock the Biden admin as Denver hospitals beg for federal help, and Brandon Johnson of Chicago is treated at a hospital for panic attacks amid the illegal migrant crisis in his city. It is going to be all of this and more, so grab some friends, get some new people in the chat, let's have the discussion, let's have a little bit of fun here tonight. And it's close to midnight, and something evil's lurking in the dark. Under the moonlight, you see a sight that almost stops your heart. You try to scream, but terror takes the sound before you make it. You start to freeze. As horror looks you right between the eyes, you're paralyzed. I am J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary. So, Follow-Up Fridays didn't happen last week, and I do want to apologize for that right off the bat. I will come out and admit there have been some things happening in my personal life, which I don't talk about very often. I mean, I think for the most part, you know that I've got a sister, I've got parents, I've got nieces and nephews, and I'm not married myself, but that's really for the extent of it for you guys. But I mean, there have been some things that happened personally with my life, and it's been affecting my sleep. I was falling asleep at work on Friday, and that is 3 hours before Follow-Up Friday. I came home, I made dinner, I did a little bit of prep work for the channel, and actually got uploads up for the audio platform, but I was in bed by 7 on Friday night. And I was sleeping by like 7:30. I took a sleep aid, which, by the way, it's not going to be one that's going to go on to things that I like, but it is definitely there. I can talk about it more in the Discord, but results may not be typical, and that's the thing with any supplement, but man, has it been helping me out a lot, and I feel fantastic right now for one of the first times in a very, very long time. I'm awake, I'm energized, I've slept through the night every night for the last few days, so it's great that we can do this now, because we can watch the beginnings of what's happening in New Hampshire, and I'm sure it'll be the nice natural curve, and then once everybody stops paying attention, they're like, whoop! Oops, Nikki Haley wins! Oh my god, she's got the energy, she can take it in South Carolina! The Orange Man is done! I actually don't anticipate any of that happening either, by the way. It's the hyperbole. It's after we watched everything happen real time in the freest and most fair election, where there was definitely nothing bad going on in 2020. After we saw everything that happened with that, it's hard not to sit here and think that this might be the thing that happens with this, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I know the opening segment we're going to be talking about Red Flag Ron, but we're also going to talk a bit about some of the last run-ups to the New Hampshire primary before the New Hampshire primary comes in. I got a lot of stories about that. We've got some really cool stuff on things that I like and things that I hate because, well, there are things that I like and things that I hate. So let's grab some friends, get some people in here, grab some dinner, grab some loved ones, and let's talk about what's going on in the news tonight. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus and Overruled with KTZed. Go check out that great programming. These are people that I have known for, well, with Steven, he was one of the first people that I ever met starting streaming. So he came to me and asked me for advice on how to do setups, and I wound up going to him for advice on a lot of stuff because he figured out streaming long before I did. Part of that might have been just because of equipment technicalities and limitations, but yeah, definitely go check them out. It's a great time. Steven's on every day. KTZed is on every Sunday. Go check that out. And we are going to get in and start talking about Ron DeSantis, who has put an end to his campaign. Let's get started. Also, by the way, I have no idea what just happened on my computer, where everything went and reloaded and went blank. Do chat along with what it is that you see and what you feel. The more you chat, the more we get promoted to the front pages of sites like YouTube and Twitch and Rumble, by the way. We algorithmically get fed to the front page. The more chat goes in there. So the more that they see you guys saying, the more that they'll come out and put it on the front page and say, hey, come check this out. And let's get started. Probably check the chat, and if I'm going to ask you guys to chat, I should probably check the chat, huh? Dual Helix is joined over on the Rumble side. Welcome over there. The Mogwai is over here with the number cruncher, by the way. Yeah, I want that emote. I'm going to tell you right off the bat. Let's. I'm going to do this before we get started here. But look at that. Look at that guy right there. I want that guy. I want that guy as my emote right there. That guy is going to come. That guy is going to be. He's going to be full by the end of tonight. I can tell you that. I've been accused of equipment limitations, says the Mogwai. F in the chat for the Mogwai. Alright. We've heard the news. We heard the story. In fact, like I said, again, Mr. Zed is, by the way, stopping in to say hi, brother. I just promoted your wife, by the way, Mr. Zed, over on the Instagram side. I'm doing promotions again. And Steven Ignoramus and KTZed are the only two that I have up. Did Mr. Zed, by the way, did you ever start? I know that you were looking at doing a podcast at one point. You had the setup in the Zed cave. So if I get to promote that, I would do that too, definitely. Anyway, we started off, and I said this in the cold open. I recorded a video on Sunday. I actually recorded two. I haven't released the second one yet. But I recorded two videos, one on the morality of candidates and one on Ron DeSantis and autopsying his campaign. And throughout the video I said, he hasn't dropped out yet. I don't know when he's going to drop out. I don't know if it's going to be before Tuesday. They're talking about that, if it's going to be after the vote, if he sees how he does. And by stupid dumb luck, he dropped out while I was recording the video. Like, I hit the off button for the record, and I looked over at X, and the first thing I saw was Liberty Lockdown saying, Ron DeSantis dropped out, endorsed Trump, and bodied Nikki Haley. And I listened to the speech. I actually listened to it. I had to go down to Kenosha to take care of some things yesterday, and I listened to it on the way down there. And yeah, he bodied Nikki Haley. And it's phenomenal. It is hilarious. So let us listen. Let's just cut right to the chase. Let's listen to Ron DeSantis explain to us why he is no longer running for the presidency.
Greetings from Florida. The warmth of being home is a reminder why I've chosen public service. From joining the United States Navy and serving in Iraq, to representing the people in the U.S. Congress, and now serving as governor of Florida. And it reminds me why I decided to run for president.
By the way, is this guy a Gen 2 synth? Like, legitimately. I don't know if that's real emotion or if that's AI trying to simulate emotion. I really don't.
President, to fight for those who have been forgotten in this country. This is America's time for choosing. We can choose to allow a border invasion, or we can choose to stop it. We can choose reckless borrowing and spending, or we can choose to limit government and lower inflation. We can choose political indoctrination, or we can choose classical education. These choices are symptoms of the underlying struggle to ensure that constitutional government can endure and that Western civilization can survive. And we launched this campaign to bring accountability to government, regain sovereignty at our border, and restore sanity to our society. We cannot succeed as a country if we allow our nation to be invaded, our currency to be debased, our cities to crumble, and our kids to be indoctrinated. The DC elites who facilitated this mess do not care about you, and they do not work for you. They work for themselves.
That is, by the way, one of the few things that I will agree with Governor Executive Order on. But I've said that since long, long before this election. The government doesn't care about you except for tax revenue. I've been open about that. I've talked about that all the time. I do wish that more people got that, especially fans of this guy who seem to think that if he gets into office, then all of a sudden everybody that's in the government is going to care about you. They're not. It doesn't matter how much of a chipper cheery face he puts on there. They're not. God helps those who help themselves.
They seek to accumulate power at your expense to pursue an agenda that is harmful to the American people. Citizens do not serve politicians. It is the duty of politicians to serve you. Talk is cheap. Actions speak louder than words. Reversing the decline of this nation requires leadership that delivers big results for the people we are elected to serve. I have a record of leading with conviction, championing an agenda marked by bold colors, delivering on my...
Is that close enough to I'm the only candidate who... ... Can we drink for that?
...my promises and defeating the people who are responsible for our nation's decline. That is the type of leadership we need for all of America. Now, over the past many months, Casey and I have traveled across the country to deliver a message of hope that decline is a choice.
You've gone to Iowa. In a sense, I could say, I guess that is across the country from where you're supposed to be because you are the sitting governor. But you've gone to Iowa, and that's it.
Choice, and that we can, in fact, succeed again as a nation. Nobody worked harder, and we left it all out on the field. Now, following our second place finish in Iowa, we've prayed and deliberated on the way forward. If there was anything I could do to produce a favorable outcome, more campaign stops, more interviews, I would do it. But I can't ask our supporters to volunteer their time and donate their resources if we don't have a clear path to victory. Accordingly, I am today suspending my campaign. I'm proud to have delivered on 100% of my promises, and I will not stop now. It's clear to me that a majority of Republican primary voters want to give Donald Trump another chance. They watch his presidency get stymied by relentless resistance, and they see Democrats using lawfare this day to attack him. Well, I've had disagreements with Donald Trump, such as on the coronavirus pandemic and his elevation of Anthony Fauci. Trump is superior to the current incumbent, Joe Biden. That is clear. I signed.
If you would have said that in September, you would have coasted to the White House in 2028. Just so you know. You wouldn't have done it with my vote. I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. But every single MAGA person would crawl over broken glass to vote for you if you would have said that in September.
Signed a pledge to support the Republican nominee, and I will honor that pledge. He has my endorsement because we can't go back to the old Republican guard of yesteryear.
Again, second thing that I can agree with this guy on. I don't think that, and I said this in my video, I don't think DeSantis is a bad guy. I mostly disagreed with his methodology, not his agenda. And pointed out that there are provisions of things that he did in the Florida Constitution that he cannot do nationwide. I don't think Ron DeSantis is a bad dude. By any stretch of the imagination. And I have been open about that.
Package formed of warmed-over corporatism that Nikki Haley represents. The days of putting Americans last, of kowtowing to large corporations, of caving to woke ideology are over. I thank all of our passionate supporters who have stood by us through it all. That we had people volunteer to come to Iowa in the middle of a blizzard to knock on doors and make phone calls touched us dearly. No candidate had more thrown at him, but no candidate had so many committed volunteers and staff.
No candidate had more thrown at him. You want to stand by that? The dickheads in the media mostly ignored you. Yes, I will admit to the fact that the MAGA people, whether real or MAGA fan 345 that suddenly made his account in September when it looked like people were starting to get along, I know those people threw a lot at you, but you really want to go with no candidates ever had as much thrown at him? Really?
Finally, I want to thank my wife, Casey, and our kids, Madison, Mason, and Mamie. Casey's gone far above and beyond in her support for our campaign and for our cause. She's not only a great wife and mother, she's a great American who cares deeply about the future of the country that our kids will inherit. Our kids have seen and done a lot on the trail, from playing on the famed Field of Dreams baseball site in Iowa to making their first snowman in New Hampshire. They are one of the reasons we fight so hard for what we believe in. Winston Churchill once remarked that success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. While this campaign...
Which, by the way, that was a Budweiser advertisement. I cringed and I listened to Tim Pool yesterday talking about that, and after I got finally home last night, I fact-checked that. Yes, that was a Budweiser commercial. That was not a Winston Churchill quote. There are a lot of people that falsely that falsely attribute it, not equivalent. That's not even a word. Falsely attribute that to Winston Churchill, but that was a Budweiser ad.
Campaign has ended, the mission continues. Down here in Florida, we will continue to show the country how to lead. Thank you, and God bless.
Let's see. Let me find the image here. Open image in new tab. There it is. There it is, right there. You can't tell him there's no fishing. Let the weatherman talk, let the experts scoff. Youth goes fishing for the fun of it, in all kinds of weather. In all kinds of waters, the man who has lost the spirit of youth is too busy with gloomy forecasts to gather bait, much less go fishing. Men with the spirit of the youth pioneered our America. Men with vision and sturdy confidence. They found contentment in the thrill of action. Knowing, and here it is, that success was never final and failure never fatal. It was the courage that counted. Is an opportunity in America today greater than it was in the days of our grateful forefathers. So, no, that was not Winston Churchill. And gaff and a half on that one, too, by the way. The fact that Budweiser, Bud Light specifically, is supposed to still be public enemy number one right now. And not only did he attribute that to one of the better wartime thinkers and diplomats in history, but also instead pulled it from the hated Anheuser-Busch. I thought that was hilarious, by the way. So yes, Ron DeSantis is out. He went in, he endorsed, which means all of his delegates that he had gathered, along with the delegates from Vivek Ramaswamy, go to Donald Trump. And he just made it eons and eons harder for Nikki Haley to take the nomination, to even win in New Hampshire right now. And I was talking about it in the Discord before we got started. One of our members, and obviously I can't show you or screenshot it for you. I can paraphrase for it, and that's like, you can paraphrase stuff from my Discord. I have no problem with it. I just don't want any screenshots because, well, I want people to be able to talk about stuff and not have to worry about it affecting them in real life, which is why I have the no screenshot rule. But I was talking about it in our topic chat, and I said full out. One of the members had mentioned that Donald Trump should turn around and tell everyone to go and vote for Dean Phillips. All his followers to go and vote for Dean Phillips. So to pull a lot of the votes out of there and then say, look, the margin that Dean Phillips won by, that's what I would have won by. And therefore turn around and screw Biden on the top of everything as well. But really, honestly, I would have agreed with that normally. But I need every voter to get out there and vote against Nikki Haley. And Putz is right, too. I don't think it's going to happen. But I really need Haley to get bodied by like 30 to 40 points. And have the Bushite, old, neoconservative, warmongering, send your kids to die, otherwise you hate this country sentiment dead and gone. I don't just want it to be defeated at the polls. I want it to be ashamed and afraid to show its face. Yes, I am terrified of Nikki Haley. Being as anti-war as I am terrified of Nikki Haley. So I don't just want her to be beaten. I want her to absolutely be bodied in the end of it. So that is what we have for that. Let's get some music back up here. See what you guys are saying. The Mogwai says, this isn't real. This is a meme. Gen 2 synth. DeSantis. Confirmed. The Mogwai says, DeSantis was sucking Anthony's member like the vaccine was in it. Yeah, he was. Like, he had the big turnaround right away, but yeah, he can't sit back and hide from the fact that he was one of the hardest lockdowns in the country initially. Literal checkpoint on I-95. I saw the goddamn thing. Pete Bankman said sometimes shit happens. Someone's got to deal with it. So who are you going to call? Based. And also, didn't Churchill also say, what's up? I think so. I think that's correct. All right. Let's get back into the news here. Dual Helix is all proud of the fact that there are two lurkers in me, and then he started lurking on me. No, that's fine. Thank you, though. All right. From the Associated Press, who is probably very depressed by this, DeSantis drops out of presidential race, leaving Trump and Haley to face off in New Hampshire. From Steve Peoples, Thomas Beaumont, and Holly Raymer. Florida man Ron DeSantis suspended his Republican presidential campaign on Sunday, ending the 2024 White House bid just before the New Hampshire primary while endorsing his bitter rival Donald Trump. And by the way, I need somebody to go over, and I don't even know where he lives, so I don't know who's going to be the closest, but go to Bill Mitchell's house. Bill Mitchell, the 8th, rather. Is it 7th or 8th? Now I got to check. But anyway, while I'm going and checking that, go make sure that there are no sharp objects or rope around his house. Especially as we're getting into the primary, that he probably thinks that DeSantis should have won walking away. 7th. Bill Mitchell. Mitchell the 7th. It's Mitchell VII in Roman numerals. Go check on him, somebody. Make sure he hasn't hung himself. We're anti-suicide around here. The decision leaves Trump and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, or War Woman as I call her, as the last major candidates remaining in the race ahead of Tuesday's New Hampshire primary. This is the scenario Trump's foes in the GOP have long sought, raising the stakes for his week's contest. Really? I mean, I've never met a Nikki Haley fan, so we'll see. As the party's last chance to stop the former president, who has so far dominated the race. But as some Trump critics cheered, DeSantis nodded toward the Trump's primary dominance and attacked Haley in an exit video posted on social media. Good. It's clear to me that the majority of Republican primary voters want to give Donald Trump another chance, DeSantis said, while crying inside if he actually has that much emotion. DeSantis said in a straight-to-camera video delivered in a cheerful tone. He continued, I signed a pledge to support the Republican nominee, and I will honor that pledge. He has my endorsement because we can't go back to the old Republican guard of yesteryear. A repackaged form of warmed-over corporatism that Nikki Haley represents. Not to mention the warmongering, but one of the observations that I made over the course of the race is that there were a lot of the people in the DeSantis camp that were pretty well warmongering too. Haley spoke at a campaigning stop in Seabrook, New Hampshire, just as DeSantis announced his decision. He had a great race, and he's been a good governor, and we wish him well, she told a room packed with supporters and media. Having said that, it's now only one fella and one lady left. Echoing the Hillary Clinton campaign, by the way. DeSantis' decision, while not surprising given his 30-point blowout loss last week in Iowa, marks the end of an extraordinary decline for a high-profile governor once thought to be a legitimate threat to Trump supremacy. Yeah, maybe when he first got in, but he just had misstep after misstep. In the Republican Party, after months of contentious exchanges, Trump struck a more conciliatory tone late Sunday during a rally in Rochester, New Hampshire, calling DeSantis, really terrific person, great person, one of the best. Love Ron DeSantis. You know what we're going to do? We're going to retire the nickname. And yes, he actually did do that too. That's not me paraphrasing. From the Citizens Free Press.
The name.
Okay.
He just said, will I be using the name Ron DeSanctimonious? I said, that name is officially retired.
Retired. It's done.
Okay.
Now, let's see. I believe he's currently cutting the leg of a stool so it rocks easy. He's currently carving Bill Was Here for the Shawshank fans, which that's not one of the 5 movies I've seen, so I actually don't know what it is you're talking about. I know the movie, obviously, but I've never seen it, so I don't know the connection you're making with that. I've heard of a lot of movies, I just haven't seen a lot of them. Like, I just watched Crocodile Dundee for the first time like 2 years ago. I had seen Crocodile Dundee 2. Because they played it all the time on VH1. They never played the original, though. Ghostbusters 2, I said. We're off on a tangent already at this point. Ghostbusters 2, too. I've seen Ghostbusters 2 way more times than I've seen Ghostbusters. Because of the fact that they played it on VH1 when I was growing up. All the goddamn time. Constantly. I was fortunate that they did play all 3 of the Back to the Future movies in about the same time frame instead of just picking one and playing it over and over again, but yes, Ron DeSanctimonious, it's over. It's done. We're going to be retiring that nickname. We're not going to be talking about it anymore. I want to talk just a bit about this and the feud and what's going on with this, with the X users currently. There are a ton of people out there who are now throwing a major temper tantrum. And I mean, if you're in the Discord, you're very welcome to come in and join the conversation, because we are having a conversation right now on how to outreach to some of these people. And there seems to be the rumor going around that Trump said it. I have not found any clip of him saying it. And as I mentioned before, MAGA fan 456, who joined Twitter on September 14th, 2023, and is completely, totally legitimate, is out there telling people, oh, we don't need DeSantis fans to vote. We've already got this locked up. And the DeSantis fans are taking it to heart. I made a pledge when DeSantis got out. I actually made a pledge after Iowa. I am not going to criticize any DeSantis fans anymore. Even if they come at me with the full strength and full force, I'm not going to criticize them anymore, because they've been through enough, especially with Ron dropping out here. They don't need any more of it, honestly. But we've got to do some sort of outreach. I'm not voting for Trump. Although there have been a few specific scenarios where I might change my mind off of that. But I know that a lot of you people that are going to watch this, both originally and then the replay later on, really do like what he did as president and can overlook the spending. And a lot of your lives were better. I know my life was technically on paper, my life was worse under Trump because I was in a job where basically there wasn't a raise for me, even though I was making a butt ton of money at the job. But just as things got more and more expensive, and the fact that I made $12,000 more this year than I did the year before. Sorry, $16,000 more this year than I did the previous year. Like, I'm in the exact same place that I was before. My life was better under Trump. And if I was making the same numbers that I'm making right now, I consider myself probably rich. But hey, that inflation, that just jumped up and caught up with everything. But that's one thing, and again, there needs to be some sort of outreach at this point. To tell these people, no, we do need you. We want you. We want you to come with us to the polls. We need to defeat Nikki Haley. God, we need to defeat Nikki Haley. We need to body this woman and get her out of politics. And then get Joe Biden the hell out of here. I mean, DeSantis said it there at the same point. And I mentioned the same thing in the video that I did talking about DeSantis. DeSantis knew that he needed Trump voters to win. And like what we see in this video here, we're going to retire the name DeSanctimonious. Because he knows, even if his fans, whether real or the Democrats that are going and trying to shake up and piss off the DeSantis fans, he knows he needs every single DeSantis voter to come in and coalesce behind him. He knows it. Absolutely he does. So, I hope that there's some sort of outreach. I hope that there's some way to put the past behind everybody and make this happen. It's like the chat's getting busy over here. Nope. Well, boy loves Ghostbusters too. Yeah, it was a good movie, and I've seen it a bunch of times. The Mogwai says, this annoys the shit out of me. The candidates hate on each other throughout the campaign. They sow kicks babies, the candidate drops out, and it's all candy and roses. I think when a candidate drops out, they need to finish them like it's Mortal Kombat. I disavow. Alright, a little brief one from CBS News. We will be probably checking the tracker pretty soon. I will probably put that up over in this window here. What to know. For more than 100 years, New Hampshire has traditionally held the first presidential primary election in the country, a long-time point of pride for the small New England state. Since 1975, the state has had a law requiring it be held at least a week before any other primary nominating contest. Voters in the Granite State will head to the polls on Tuesday to continue that tradition, at least on the Republican side. There are 22 delegates at stake in the GOP race, and that result could go a long way towards determining the ultimate nominee. Former President Trump is hoping to deal a knockout blow to Nikki Haley. Oh, please, God. The former South Carolina governor and his sole remaining challenger, Haley, is hoping for a strong finish that can fuel her campaign in the weeks ahead. God help us all. The Republican field winnowed on Sunday when Florida man Ron DeSantis dropped out and made a two-person race. DeSantis endorsed Trump's bid for the nomination, but it remained unclear what effect his decision to bow out would have on the outcome. Well, we'll see in about 18 minutes. New Hampshire's commitment to keep its first-in-the-nation primary status intact was not without controversy in recent months, but the Granite State finds itself voting in a critical juncture in this unique primary season, which, by the way, also a reminder, Joe Biden is not on the ballot today. I don't know if it was the Secretary of State or if it was the Granite State's Democratic Party, punished Biden by saying he was disqualified from the ballot for the National DNC trying to shuffle it around and making them not the first in this first primary for the Democrats, even though they have the 1975 law rather, that says they have to be the first. They have to hold it before anybody else's primary. Like, that's their state law, which is their right under Section Section 1, Article 2 of the Constitution. I had to think about that one for a second. Is New Hampshire an open or closed primary? New Hampshire's primary system is open, meaning that undeclared voters, who make up more than 39% of registered voters in the state, can vote in either the Democrat or Republican primary on Election Day. That undeclared voting bloc is critical for Haley, who must sway both conservative and undeclared voters away from Trump. The state's registered Democratic and Republican voters each make up about 30% of the voting demographic. And that's going to be interesting to see where the numbers go. And I think part of where Putz was coming from when he said that we can't get the 30 to 40% bodying that we absolutely need to show Nikki Haley that she's not welcome. New Hampshire, in spite of having the Free State Project housed in its state lines, is a very blue state. And that means that there are a lot of people who can just go up and say undeclared and then just walk up and grab the Republican ballot, especially when their aged messiah is not on it. It's something I talked about all the way back when I started talking about the primaries and the fact that we were going to have some, is that there are some states out there where they're legitimately trying to make sure that Biden is the only person out there. They hate Dean Phillips right now, Marianne Williamson, because they don't want there to be a primary, because there are states like New Hampshire, Wisconsin is one of them, and a host of others where it's an open primary. You don't have to declare what team that you're on. Like, New Hampshire apparently has a mechanism to register as a Republican or Democrat. Wisconsin has none. While I have voted Republican in most of the past elections, sometimes with my nose held, Romney, Trump too, in the primary in 2020, I grabbed a ballot and voted for Bernie because Trump had no challengers. And in my district, I knew that it was a foregone conclusion for state races as well. So the people that were in my state legislature in the district that I'm in, it was a blue district for state legislature, and they were running unopposed. So I just grabbed the Democrat primary ballot. I voted for Bernie and went on with my day. And would you look at that? Bernie dropped out right after I did that. This year's primary could deliver record turnout, according to New Hampshire Secretary of State David Scanlon. Scanlon predicted that potentially 322,000 Granite State Republicans could participate in the GOP primary, with about 88,000 Democrats participating in the Democratic primary. By law, undeclared residents may vote in New Hampshire's GOP primary along with Republican voters. Registered voters may only vote in one party's primary, and the deadline to switch party registration expired in early October. Of the state's more than 873,000 registered voters, just 3,542 voters changed their registration from Democrat to undeclared before the state's October 6th deadline, and just 408 Democrats changed their registration to Republican. According to the Secretary of State's office, 21 Democrats submitted the necessary paperwork and payment to appear on the ballot, including Dean Phillips of Minnesota and Marianne Williamson, who ran for the nomination in 2020. 24 Republicans filed for the GOP nomination, including all the major candidates. Several, like Pence, Christie, Tim Scott, suspended their campaigns before votes were cast. So, well, 13 minutes, that's when everything starts, but it's going to be probably about 15-20 minutes before we start getting results in. Tim Scott, by the way. Tim Scott to endorse Trump ahead of New Hampshire primary. Oh, I had something else I was going to put on things I like and things that I hate too, speaking of Tim Scott. Spoiler alert, Tim Scott got engaged, and I thought that was pretty cool, honestly. Tim Scott to endorse Trump ahead of New Hampshire primary from Al Weaver and Brett Samuels. Tim Scott will formally endorse former President Trump on Friday night, a move that comes after the concerted lobbying effort and ahead of next week's New Hampshire primary. Two sources familiar with said Scott will endorse Trump at a rally in the Granite State. A spokesperson for Trump campaign did not respond to a request for comment. Scott ended his presidential bid in November and has since been prodded by Trump's team to back the favorite's campaign. One source noted Trump and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley were angling for Scott's backing in recent days as Trump tries to put the primary contest to bed, and Haley, who appointed Scott to the Senate in 2013 as South Carolina governor, fights for political survival. Now, what this does for New Hampshire, I'm not 100% sure. But this is devastating for Haley in her home state. The person you, number one, nominated as governor, and number two, the other person from your home state, that person just went out and said, no, you suck. I want to endorse the other guy. I almost want to see Haley survive by the skin of her teeth in the New Hampshire primary, just so I can see the blowout in South Carolina. I do. I have no remorse, by the way. I said with the DeSantis campaign, I like DeSantis, I don't like his methodology, and he had some problems with his campaign, but I'm not going to sit and criticize him anymore. I do not hold that same will for Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley's version of republicanism needs to die a painful death in front of everybody. Slowly, perhaps. Although, I'd like to see it get put out of its misery, too. The Mogwai says, I think if Lindsey Graham got engaged, it'd be miracle-worthy. Yeah, so do all the guys at the Chippendales Club. Trump leads Haley by a double-digit margin in New Hampshire, according to a series of polls in the last week. So, thank you to Tim Scott for that. I'm thinking Scott 28. And I liked Tim Scott from the beginning. I said that I actually might endorse him if he carries his campaign to the end. I think Tim Scott would be a fantastic president, honestly. I know a few people that are in my Discord would disagree with me, but it's for an immutable characteristic. Speaking of endorsements, bringing in from my home state this piece of garbage. That's not fair. As opposed to what most people said about him, Paul Ryan was a great representative. He just sucked as a Speaker of the House, and then what he chose to do after he was Speaker of the House made him even worse. But Paul Ryan was a good representative for what he was. And basically, I lived in Paul Ryan's district just about up until the time that Paul Ryan wasn't in Congress anymore. From the time I could first vote on until Paul Ryan wasn't in Congress anymore. With the exception of 2 years, because while I was living in Mass as a student, I still had my primary residence in Kenosha, which is in Paul Ryan's district, or was in Paul Ryan's district when he was still a representative. He always was my representative to Congress. He sucked as a speaker. And then he turned into the swamp after he got out of the speakership. But he gave his endorsement to Haley, which, I mean, that might as well be a poison pill at this point. After so many MAGA people turn their backs on him.
Look, a lot's going to happen between now and November. Nothing's linear in politics these days. There's a zigzag, so who knows is the point. Biden is so weak that even Donald Trump pulls up ahead of him. But look at Nikki Haley's polling. I mean, she beats him by like 12 points in head-to-head polls. So right. I would prefer a candidate who I think would be a good president and who I know is going to win. And by the way, give us more seats in Congress. That's Nikki Haley. Well, obviously, my preferences aren't bubbling through the Republican Party right now. But let's just wait and see what happens in New Hampshire and see if this inevitability narrative, which has credence now coming out of Iowa, if it sticks past New Hampshire. And if Nikki Haley wins New Hampshire, then I think we got a race on our hands. So I want to wait and see what happens there.
Well, you made a lot.
Look,
That's all I have to say about that. The How did Rush used to say it? The Huffing and Puffington Post. This ought to be good. Pro-Palestine activists urge New Hampshire voters to write in ceasefire. Mowgli, I hope you survived your attack of cringe earlier because it just got worse. From Daniel Marins. A group of progressive activists have launched a last-minute effort to protest President Biden's lockstep support of Israel's bombardment of Gaza, encouraging voters to write in ceasefire in their New Hampshire presidential primary ballots. The effort adds the most divisive issue to Democratic politics to an already confusing stew in Tuesday's Democratic primary in New Hampshire, which will award no convention delegates. Well, they can just superdelegate him back out of that. But it's taken on symbolic importance. Biden is not only officially on the not officially on the ballot, but his only remotely serious challenger, Dean Phillips of Minnesota, has staked his campaign's viability on getting more than 20% in the Granite State, which he will not do, by the way. That's even without Biden on the ballot, he's not going to get that in New Hampshire. More than anything, however, the ultimate strength of the ceasefire campaign could provide an early look at one of the most important questions in Democratic politics. How much are voters willing to prioritize ending the conflict? And how wide the wedge between Biden and left-wing voters who backed him for years, 4 years ago, has become? Arab Americans and progressive voters in particular fault Biden for his refusal to leverage U.S. military aid to Israel to halt the war that they see as criminal. An Israeli aerial bombardment and ground operation have killed more than 25,000 Palestinians, most of them women and children, displaced 85% in the Gaza Strip's population, and generated catastrophic shortages of food, water, and medical care. I kind of want to see how much of the vote share ceasefire gets. That intrigues me. I want to know this. I'm going to watch the primary results just for that. Well, that, and I've got to wait for my fish to broil. I'm having broiled cod tonight, by the way. And broccoli. I went back to kind of a modified low-carb diet, and I don't eat carbs for dinner anymore. I try not to eat dinner as late as after contemporary, but once I got in and showered, because I stayed a little bit late at work, I was like, oh crap, it's 5:45. I got all my tabs organized, but there's no way I'm going to cook before contemporary. Alright, post-millennial. In an article that you should not care about, and there will be a video coming out, I will probably put it out tomorrow morning. I'll upload it tonight and put the details on it tomorrow morning of why this doesn't matter. But the post-millennial thinks it matters. Nikki Haley allegedly cheated on husband with lobbyist and comms consultant prior to South Carolina governorship. Heels up, Haley. From Jared Yeager. Court documents have revealed that Nikki Haley did in fact cheat on her husband before becoming governor, and that one of her lovers was a married South Carolina lobbyist. Haley repeatedly denied that she'd been unfaithful to her husband Michael when allegations first broke in 2010. Now they've been married for 28 years and have 2 children together. DNA test. According to the Daily Mail, the aforementioned lobbyist, Larry Marchant Jr., and Haley's communications consultant, Will Folks, admitted in signed affidavits that they'd both, on separate occasions, had affairs with then future governor. It's just on separate occasions. We didn't play Eiffel Tower here. It's kind of interesting that they made that specific point, by the way. No, we'll get through it all, Mogwai. I'm watching you. I came forward publicly to this matter after being contacted by the press and after hearing Rep. Haley claimed that she had been 100% faithful to her husband in response to the folks' allegations. When I knew her statement were absolutely false, he added, the issue has been difficult for me personally, professionally, and it's brought unwanted attention to my family and my clients. Okay. Whoever your favorite representative is, whether it's your representative or not, whoever your favorite politician is, Supreme Court Justice, perhaps, your favorite senator, your local politician, for that matter, your favorite governor, anybody that's been in politics, there is a 90+% chance that person has had an affair at least once in their lives. I'm not going to go over all the topics that I went over in my video on this, because I want you to watch the video. But on the TLDR version, I will come out and tell you this. I don't give a fuck that Nikki Haley had an affair with her husband. I don't. She used to be attractive at one point in her life. Not now, obviously, but she used to be attractive at one point of this. I care that Nikki Haley has a world map in her office with bullseyes on it. That's what I care about. And furthermore, this is just stupid because they're going to come back and try to use this as this is going to be the standard that we hold Trump to. In fact, some of the DeSantis people already did that when the MAGA people came out and said, Nikki Haley had an affair. One of the cringier accounts out there said, do we hold Trump to the same standard? No, and I don't hold Nikki Haley to that standard either. You know why? Because the idiots on the left who want to push communism on me hold their people up as heroes when they do stupid shit like that. Ilhan Omar is a fantastic example. Brought her brother husband over from Somalia through fraudulent marriage, divorced him, and then bundled a bunch of money into some dude's campaign finance and campaign advisement office to the tune of millions of dollars, and then married him, and oops, all of a sudden that's a marital asset that she has access to half of, or all of, because they're married. And they hold her up as a hero for doing shit like that. I'm telling you, if I ever tried to run as a Democrat and steal money, I'd make sure I was banging somebody I wasn't supposed to be banging while in the midst of it, because the Democrats would hold me up as a hero for doing it. Fani Willis is another example of that, but we talked that to death last Thursday. So yeah, I don't care. Nikki Haley is not my pastor. I don't look to her for moral guidance. I look to her and hope and pray to God that she never sees the inside of the Oval Office. Mogwai says South Carolina governors have been screwing around since the end of the Civil War. We had a governor go missing and then claim he was hiking the Appalachian Trail. All the while he was screwing a side chick. Can you give me a link to that? You're in the Discord, I know you are. Can you give me a link to that? I am fascinated by that story. I want details on that one. Alright, what else do we have? It is 7:01. We're still talking about New Hampshire. Trump's closing arguments to the New Hampshire voters pushes misinformation suggesting Democrats would infiltrate the GOP primary, in spite of the fact that that has been a campaign from the beginning. Former President Trump's closing message to New Hampshire voters contains falsehoods about the upcoming primary election, including a baseless claim that Democrats are planning to infiltrate the primary to support the former South Carolina governor, Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley is counting on Democrats and liberals to infiltrate your Republican primary, Trump said to a small ballroom filled with supporters in Portsmouth Wednesday evening, before blaming New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu for the state's primary system, which is stupid, by the way, because it's in their state bylaws and constitution, and it would take an act of God to change it, which allows undeclared voters, which make up 40% of the state's registered voters, to vote in either the Republican or Democratic primary on January 23rd. Look, That's not misinformation. They came right out and said that they were going to do it. You put yourself in a situation where your Messiah is not on the ballot and put the information in people's heads that they have to take Trump down at whatever cost, whether it be a Bushite or not. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? Trump repeated the same unfounded claims to a crowd of over 1,000 in Atkinson, New Hampshire on Tuesday night, and inaccurately stated Democrats want to cancel out votes for him. But they do. And you know what that means you need to do? Get your ass to the poll. Well, not anymore because the polls are closed in New Hampshire, but if you want to see a defeat against this, that's what you need to do. If you have open primary in your state, Nikki Haley's still on the ballot, which she won't be by the time it gets around to Wisconsin because that's not until April, you need to get your ass to the polls and make sure that you vote for the outcome that you want. Make it harder for them to, as Trump said, cancel out votes for him. Make that turnout look like there has never been turnout before, is what you need to do if you fear that that's going to happen. Misinformation. Fuck off. You know how I know they do that? Because I did that in April of 2020. I was open about it. And the last one we'll do on the primary process, a little bit of a thank God. Nikki Haley, Vice President, is off the table.
As we celebrate Pride...
No, not that one. Wrong sounder. That's all I have to say about that. But yeah, Nikki Haley's saying that she's not going to girl boss, and again, I was already planning on not voting for Trump in the upcoming general because of the spending. But if he puts Haley on the ticket, I am staying home. I'm uniquely terrified of that candidate. All right. Now we get to talk about other news, but I should also start looking at the New Hampshire primary results. Come on. Oh, we actually get something in already. Update 7:05, 18% of precincts reporting. It's a 10% lead right now. We'll put this over here and watch it as it goes. But let's get it into this screen first so you guys can see it. Yes, as of right now at 7:05 p.m., 18% reporting with 9.6% of a lead for Donald Trump. Florida man got 366 votes so far. God, please keep Nikki Haley off the ballot. Please. Of all things, keep Nikki Haley off the ballot. Yeah. Helix said, I said this was going to happen a month ago. Nikki Haley, Secretary of State. You shut your mouth. No. No, that's bad. Oh, look, that's me. All right. So it looks like the E. Jean Carroll trial, it's a civil suit, by the way, is off the table for a little while here. Reading from Business Insider. Trump rolled into Manhattan federal court on Monday, ready to testify in his own defense in E. Jean Carroll's ongoing defamation lawsuit. Then juror number 3 called out sick, possibly with the pinko pox. And Tuesday, well, that's the New Hampshire Republican primary, and Trump made clear through his defense team on Monday that he plans on being there, which is good, by the way. Yes, Chris Christie got 46 votes. Thank you for pointing that out, Dual Helix. Now, that chain of events, a sick juror, New Hampshire primary, may well conspire to keep Trump off the witness stand entirely. 4 criminal cases and even more civil ones were widely anticipated to cause a traffic jam in the race to reclaim the presidency. The opposite is also happening as his campaign schedule jams into his court calendar. If the Pinko Pox doesn't bring the case to a standstill and testimony resumes on Tuesday, Trump playing hooky to attend the primary would mean the trial will barrel forward without him, quite likely closing off the window of opportunity for him to take the stand. Well, if juror number 3 has COVID, he has to be out for 10 days if he tested positive right before that. So, yeah, good luck having this go barrel on after the fact. And like I've always said, I know a lot of people like to look at this woman and say, oh, well, he could never have done that. He was married to Melania. Number 1, it was 30 years ago. Number 2, and I will point this out entirely, this is a civil suit to determine whether or not defamation has happened. Number 2, the jurors said that they didn't believe that rape was there. That was something that was added on by the judge. And number 3, the 2 people you see on your screen right now are the only 2 people in the world, in the universe, who will ever know for positive what happened in that room, in that dressing room. Everybody else in the universe will be speculating. And a lot of that will be based on partisan outlook, how they feel about the politics of what's going on with that. But the only 2 people who will ever know for sure, no judge, no juror, no pundit, no voter, no conspiracy theorist, no anybody else will ever know what happened in that room except for those 2 people right there. That's it. The rest of you can speculate all you want. It's not, you won't know. On the Colorado side, this is Dual Helix's home state. McConnell and Republicans sign on Supreme Court brief keeping Trump on the ballot. Megan Vasquez of the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness, reporting. Nearly 180 Republicans signed on to an amicus brief to the U.S. Supreme Court in support of Trump's legal battle to remain on the primary election ballot in Colorado. The long list of signatories to the brief includes someone who has largely steered clear of the 2024 race and who previously said the former president is responsible for provoking the 2021 selfie fest, the Turtle Man himself, Mitch McConnell. I will praise Mitch McConnell when he does right, and he doesn't do it very often. But as I've said from the beginning when they started doing this doesn't have anything to do with insurrection, unfit for office, or anything else. If you want to make an accusation against somebody in this country, we still have a due process of law. No judge in a civil suit gets to determine whether you have a criminal conviction, and you cannot be barred from life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness. And if your pursuit of happiness is attempting to run for a public office, you cannot be barred from that unless you have a specific criminal conviction. And in the case of the 14th Amendment, a very specific criminal conviction. And I think Mitch McConnell knows that. Colorado State Supreme Court disqualified Trump from the ballot last month, finding that he engaged in an insurrection. No, they didn't find that before and during January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. The decision marked the first time a court has ruled to keep a presidential candidate off the ballot under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, a post-Civil War provision that bars insurrectionists from holding office. The friend of the court brief, which was filed on Thursday, argues that the Supreme Court should reverse the Colorado decision, saying the lower court opinion tramples the prerogatives of members of Congress. Well, again, not only that, but it tramples right on the Constitution. The brief does not weigh in on whether the events of January 6th were an insurrection, a term central to Colorado's court decision. Again, it doesn't matter whether or not they were. You need a conviction for that. No, Judge Judy cannot. gap is narrowing. Now, this would normally not be an election year thing, but this is definitely an election year thing. Reading from The Hill. No, that's a video. We'll read from ABC instead. China cloned COVID-like virus to test on mice acknowledges spillover risk to humans. Chinese researchers, for whatever reason, claim to have cloned a COVID-like virus mutation that showed a 100% mortality rate in mice. By the way, these are mice, and I got this from another source, that were genetically altered to be more like humans. In a report by researchers under a collaborative project between China and Mongolia, scientists explained the virus is a strain of the coronavirus found in pangolins. They then cloned the virus and tested it on mice. In this study, we cloned the mutant considering the propensity of coronaviruses to undergo rapid adaptive mutation in cell culture and assess the pathogenicity in HACE2 mice, that's genetically engineered mice, a researcher wrote. We found that the GXP2V, short 3UTR clone, can infect HACE2 mice with high viral loads detected in both lung and brain tissues. Each mouse detected and displayed symptoms of piloerection, hunched posture, and sluggish movements, along with their eyes turning white and weight loss. They each died within 8 days with late brain infection and the supposed cause. Isn't it funny that that's right in time for an election year, you guys? Isn't that funny? Researchers continued, noting the infection could spill over to humans. Right in 2024, you say. So, wait for that one to come back. If you've never read The Stand, I highly recommend it with stories like this. I'm not familiar, but you can link that in the Discord if you would like to, and I hope that you do. Oh, they're talking about it in the topic chat. Good. Oh, that gap is narrowing again. We better keep going, huh? Alright, on the Democratic side, first, he totally got this quote right. Are you guys ready? Are you ready for this? Are you ready? I could start singing Taylor Swift. Are you ready?
And I love people that say,
The blood of liberty.
or the tree of liberty is watered with the blood of patriots. Well, guess what, man? I didn't see a whole lot of patriots that are out there walking around making sure that we have these weapons. Well, and if you really want to worry about the government, you need an F-16. And I love.
Well, first off, that tired argument about the F-16 is Afghanistan has entered the chat. Vietnam has entered the chat. Iraq has entered the chat. Saudi Arabia has entered the chat. But just this stupid fucking part.
People say,
The blood of liberty.
or the tree of liberty is watered with the blood of patriots. Well, guess what?
81 million votes, folks. We promise. Let's talk about vote buying. From the Associated Press, overdraft fees could drop to as low as $3 under a new Biden proposal. Don't worry, the banks will get you in another way. They're good at it. And the rest of our fees for people who don't overdraft are going to go up if this does go through. Ken Sweet and Cora Lewis reporting. The cost to overdraw a bank account could drop to as little as $3 under a proposal announced by the White House. The latest effort by the Biden admin to combat fees, it says, pose an unnecessary burden on American consumers whose economic lives you've destroyed by destroying their job markets and their savings and jacking the price of everything through the goddamn roof. Particularly those living to paycheck, which Biden loves because he makes more of them every day. The proposed change by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau would potentially eliminate billions of dollars in fee revenue for the nation's biggest banks. No, they'll get it. They just won't get it through loaning money to people, which is what an overdraft is. Which we're gearing up for a battle even before Wednesday's announcement. Exactly how much revenue depends on which version of the new regulation is adopted. Banks charge a customer an overdraft fee if their bank account balance falls below zero. Overdraft started as a courtesy offer to some customers when paper checks used to take days to clear, but proliferated thanks to growing popularity of debit cards. So, for instance, a $10 debit card transaction would cost a bank customer $40 if their balance goes below zero. For too long, and some banks have charged exorbitant overdraft fees, sometimes $30 or more. That often hit the most vulnerable Americans the hardest, man. Well, banks pad their bottom lines, Biden said in a statement. Banks call it a service. I call it the thing, man. Look, okay, I'm going to tell you right off the bat. For somebody who has dealt with overdraft, and that was back when it was $14, before inflation jumped it up to 30 and 40. I have told you before, when I lived in Kenosha the first time, I was extremely poor, with no prospects to change that until literally the time that I got out of that city. I was very poor. Very, very, very poor. And yes, it has happened. And what I'll tell you on the back of that too is, if you think you're doing fine and then an unexpected fee or transaction hits, and you've got 5 or 6 small transactions, like you got a soda at the gas station and then a pack of cigarettes somewhere else, or you maybe put $5 in your car for gas because you had to get back and forth to work, and you throw $14 on each one of them. Yes, I understand where it can spiral out of control and put you in a position that you can't get yourself out of. I get that. But I will also come out and say that this is something that not a lot of people had to deal with or worry about until this guy got back into office. Number 2, what they get off these fees, and when a bank charges a fee like this, it's part of their operating cost. It is in essence a loan, but it's not something they're going to collect normal and standard interest off of. That's what the overdraft fee is, a stand-in for the interest. It's a service that they provide, and they're going to use that, and they're going to put that towards operating costs, paying the employees, paying the phone desk people who have to listen to you when you sit back and beg and say, oh, the money was there, I swear, I know it was. With that being said, when the government puts its hand in the free market will find a way, especially in the banking sector, to get its money. Interest rates on savings account go down because they can't afford to pay out for that. Your interest rates on home loans, car loans, personal loans, etc. go up because instead of getting what they would have for providing the service, then they turn around and they charge it to people who are responsible. But they're going to get their money no matter what because, again, for the most part, they need it to operate. This is not padding their bottom line, as Biden says. I might be dying of cringe. Thank you, I am dying of cringe. Come on, man! But this is a vote by. This is a president who, again, through the inflationary spending, has wrecked the savings accounts and the checking accounts of people who are otherwise making it and doing well. And now coming back and saying, hey man, if you just vote for me, man, then when you overdraw 3 times this week, and it's not going to crush you again, man, come on. Lindsey Graham has entered the chat. The Mogwai says, you spend $50 on that boy toy and then buy a new collar and it's with spikes for $200. Well, you can overdraft quick. Oh yeah, and that $50 date, and then the date and that spike collar, the date was $25 3 years ago, and the spike collar was $100. So there you go. Vote buy. The banks coming back swinging off of this one. Banks slam Biden admin plan to cap overdraft fees from Julia Shapiro. Bank trade groups slammed the Biden admin's latest proposal to limit overdraft fees on Wednesday, dismissing it as a misguided proposal and an effort to score political points. Well, yeah, that's because that's what it is. The proposed rule from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau would require large banks to limit overdraft charges using a break-even standard or benchmark fee and removing an existing exemption for overdraft loans from credit regulations. The American Bankers Association argued the proposal would make it significantly harder for banks to offer overdraft protection to customers. I don't know that I would go that far, because typically if you do overdraft protection, it goes against your saving, or, well, for them to actually have overdraft instead of just declining the card as they go. For people who get stuck in an emergency, I think is where they're going with that. In an effort to score political points, the CFPB is seeking to eliminate a valuable service and push consumers who need overdraft protection into the hands of less regulated, more costly alternatives, like the payday loan store, ABA President and CEO Rob Nichols said in a statement. The proposal also fails to fully acknowledge and appreciate the significant voluntary changes many banks have already made to their overdraft programs, including the growing availability of accounts that do not charge overdraft fees. Because we're getting to the point where people need that because, well, everything costs an arm and a leg. The proposal would upset this competitive market, restricting access to overdraft with government-imposed price cap, Nichols continued. Well, yeah, that's because every time the government puts their fingers in something, it gets worse. So, thank you for that vote by President Biden. Jamie Dimone. We'll do a check on the election here in just a moment, which is actually tightening a little bit more that I want to see it. Benny Johnson says reporters gasp on air as America's most powerful banker. Praises Trump's policies and defends the MAGA movement and blasts Biden for demonizing 75 million Americans. This ought to be interesting. Trump was right about NATO, immigration, and the economy. Democrats need to grow up. And this is Jamie Dimone, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. I still would never open an account with JP Morgan Chase, but this, by the way, makes it a little bit harder.
We've got this great hand, but when people say MAGA, they're actually looking at people voting for Trump, and they think they're voting, and they're basically scapegoating them, that you are like him. But I don't think they're voting for Trump because of his family values. Now, if you look, just take a step back, be honest. He was kind of right about NATO, kind of right about immigration. Mm-hmm. He grew the economy quite well.
China virus.
Tax reform worked. Yeah. He was right about some of China. I don't like what he did.
No, I said China virus.
Yeah, I understand. He may have been right. And I don't like how he said things about Mexico. But he wasn't wrong about some of these critical issues. And that's why they're voting for him. And I think people should be a little more respectful of our fellow citizens. And when you guys have people up here, you should always ask the why. Not like it's a binary thing. You're supporting Trump, you're not supporting Trump. Why are you supporting Trump?
It's hard to hate 75 million of your fellow Americans.
I agree.
It's done crazy.
Ask Germany how that feels. To hate X percentage of your electorate.
And, the Democrats have done a pretty good job with the deplorables, hugging onto their Bibles and their beer and their guns. I mean, really? Can we just stop that stuff and actually grow up and treat other people with respect and listen to them a little bit? And I do think the economy will affect, and I think this negative talk about MAGA is going to hurt Biden's election campaign.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, his hardened people are going to go vote for him no matter what, but I do think that independents look up at this and they see a person with political power persecuting his political enemy. That's what I see. Let's look at the New Hampshire vote here. We are at 52.5% for Trump with 46.6% For Haley, that's a terrifying number for me, by the way, with 23% reporting. 11-6 on the delegate count. Chris Christie got 51 votes, and Ron DeSantis got 442. Vivek got 20 votes. Most of these people, I have no idea who the hell they are. No, we're not going to do that one yet. All right. Let's get through the rest of the news, shall we? On the Supreme Court side, Supreme Court stays out of fight over transgender student bathroom access. From Lawrence Hurley. The Supreme Court on Tuesday declined for now to weigh in on the contentious issue of bathroom access for transgender students by rejecting an Indiana school district's appeal. The court left in place an appeals court ruling that required middle school in Martinsville to allow a transgender boy to use the bathroom that corresponds with his gender identity. Does this make you want to vote for Biden anymore, by the way? The student, identified in court papers as AC, who has since graduated from John R. Wooden Middle School, is now in high school where he's able to use his preferred bathroom. The Metro School District of Martinsville had wanted the justices to conclude that it is not required to allow transgender students to use the bathroom of their choosing. The issue is whether either the Constitution's 14th Amendment, which says the laws apply equally to everyone, or Title IX, the federal law that prohibits sex discrimination in education, protects transgender students in that context. The court's decision not to intervene means the litigation in lower courts nationwide will continue, with judges reaching differing conclusions. The Supreme Court is likely to weigh in on the issue at some point. This, by the way, I think is a big point. A lot of people say Harambe is where the timeline split. I think that everything went off the rails when people stopped being able to figure out which bathroom to use. Look, I'm going to tell you right off the bat. It's not hard. Most bathrooms, it's basically just they put the sign on the front for the fact that they put the sign on the front. Some Quick Trips around our area here do have the urinal in the men's room, but a lot of them still, from their old times as Quick Trips before Quick Trip turned into the big fast casual kind of place that it is, still have just the toilet bowl built into the wall. Maybe one or two of them in there. You go into the bathroom, you take a dump, or you pee, whichever one you have to do, and you go out and you get on with your day. And I legitimately, when I look at something like this, I think that this was pushed to try to put it into the public eye. To try to basically force the hands of conservatives. And I've said this for a long time. I think a big reason for the fact that they did this, because nobody cared before this. I'm going to come right off and say, nobody gave a fuck before this. The Dennis Leary roast in 2004, in the intro credits, featured Dennis going and taking a leak at a seedy club bathroom. And what I think at the time most people would have considered a fairly attractive but tall woman walking in next to him in a dress, putting her arm up on the wall, and then walking up to the urinal next to him and whipping it out and taking a leak. Well, you couldn't see the whip it out part, but it's Comedy Central. I mean, they're not going to go that far. Nobody cared about this in 2004. You went to the bathroom, you evacuated your bowels or your bladder, and you went on with your day. But so many people made it about, I'm going to go in there, I want to be next to your wife, and I want to be next to your daughters, and this and that and the next thing. A problem that we didn't have up until 2014. Really, honestly, and realistically, as an individualist, I think this should be up to the establishment. That's private property. We may have to put some rules down as far as public places like courthouses. And yes, schools is going to be a big one, where unfortunately, because they are public buildings and government run, we do have to put some sort of rule down on there at a state or federal level. But Tim's Bar down the street should be able to make that decision. And hell, at Tim's Bar down the street, half the time they're both genders in the bathroom because they're in there fucking hooking up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Some John Kerry news. This is an op-ed from Fox News. The opinions that appear in this article are the opinions of Liz Peek and not necessarily the opinions of Fox News, Contemporary, Turns the Pages Productions, or your host, Jay Edgar. I guess Nikki's concession speech is pretty cringe. Is she conceding? I don't see anything on concession speech for her. You're on Rumble, so you can link it. If you see a link to a speech or something, you can do that on the Rumble side. Let's see. Go, Nikki. Oh, I know it's getting worse. Ramen is up to a $1.50 pack. Is it? Where you are? Holy shit. It's still 3 for $1 where I live. But it used to be 4 for $1. Fuck, it used to be 10 for $1. Like, the year that I went to Mass, 2006, you could get 10 packs of ramen for $1. So yes, I do think that 3 for $1 is ridiculous. The Mogwai says first name Cease, last name Fire. We'll have to look at the write-in results. Well, that'll be on the Democrat side though too. Alright, this is what the Democrat side looks like over here. Unprocessed write-in. That might actually be Cease or Fire, Cease. Dean Phillips is in with 20.7% of the vote. Marianne Williamson is in at 4.5%, and Biden write-in is actually surprisingly low at 366 votes. So I don't know how many of those will wind up in this category or not. But we have a confirmed 392 Joe Biden write-ins. The Mogwai says there's a scene in a Night Court episode where the bailiffs are betting on male or female in the 80s. I think I was just, and I think if I remember correctly, you're a little bit older than me. But not by much, like 1 or 2 years. So I don't remember Night Court of the 80s. I know my parents watched it, but I don't remember it. Maybe it's just, it was after I went to bed or something. Because I turned 6 in 1990. If I want to go to the nightclub, I should have my choice on which bathroom toilet seat to snort coke off of. Alright, let's see here. We've got a link. Tim Young, Tim runs his mouth, says Nikki Haley's concession speech sounds like an empty, moronic Selena Meyer speech from Veep. I've never seen Veep, by the way. It was on my Amazon watch list, I just never got around to it. Which is, like, it's weird because I love anything that has Tina Fey in it, so it would be right up my alley, but... Alright, let's talk about John Kerry while we're waiting to see what happens with that. Let's get the primary results back over here. No wonder John Kerry is stepping down as climate czar. Biden's trillion-dollar green agenda is blowing up, and no one is more closely tied to the fast-deflating boondoggle than John Kerry. The push for electric vehicles is a bust. Renewable projects like offshore wind farms are being canceled by the boatload. People are tired of being told that they can't buy things that they want, like gas stoves and incandescent light bulbs, and guess what? Sane people in our country are willing to admit finally the world will run on fossil fuels for the foreseeable future. Even Wall Street elites are throwing in the towel. ESG funds scorch their high fees, and avoidance of oil and gas stocks are drying up. Just last week, Chesapeake Energy announced it will spend $7.4 billion to purchase Southwestern Energy, creating what will be our country's largest producer of natural gas. The combined companies will feed an ever-growing demand for U.S. gas to supply LNG exports, essentially loosening Russia's grip on Europe's energy. The acquisition signals confidence that Biden's crackdown on oil and natural gas production has run smack into a reality brick wall, much as the White House wants to pander to the climate lobby. We need fossil fuels. So, there are two sides to look at this for this. Number one, it is an election year, remember. And what I mean when I say that this is an election year is the fact that what turned the tides for Obama in 2012, even though Mitt Romney was Obama, but white, they had the same policy positions, they said the same things, they made the same promises. But what really turned the tide back for Obama was when he went out and opened up the pipelines and drills and everything else and did everything he could to try to make gas as cheap as possible. And gas did drop significantly in 2012 at the very last minute. And it went back up in 2013 right away again. And I think Biden is looking at the fact that he might have to go back and do that as well, or at least his handlers are. But a couple things with this. This could actually probably fit on things that I hate. A couple things with this. With the electric vehicle thing. If you would have opened up the market, like actually had it open, the prices were somewhat on par with what new vehicle prices were at the time. Maybe even a little bit lower because of costs of materials is, with the exception of the replacement of the battery and everything, do come out to be, at the time of purchase, a touch lower. And then, of course, you throw a couple subsidies on there because the government has to put their finger in the free market. But if you'd have done that without having these conversations of everybody needs to buy one, we need to force this down, we need to outlaw gas cars by this year or that year, depending on the state that you're in, I think people would have bought them in more volume than they did. When you try to force something on somebody, people start to look at that and think to themselves, okay, what's the catch? What's the hook that's buried in this? And the hook in a lot of these electric vehicles are the fact that their driving is somewhat of a subscription service. So now you've got the government trying to tell you have to have this in a vehicle that they can shut down at any point through satellite. And people don't want to be forced to that. But yeah, I think if the market had been open, people looked at this and said, this is so cool, I want one of these. There'd have been a few tinfoilers that said, you don't want that because that GPS is going to come back down and shut you down and you're not going to be able to go anywhere. But when they started to push the force on it, I still don't think that the numbers would have been where gas and diesel vehicles are. I don't think they would have climbed that high. I don't think it would have taken over the market, but I think the market share would be higher. And I think it'd be profitable for the automakers to at least offer the option of going to an electric vehicle, because I think people would have bought them. But once you start saying, hey, you're forced to do this, you must do this, we're outlawing your gas stove and your incandescent light bulbs. We're Americans. We got our founding in this country by giving one of these to the government. The only person more horse-faced than AOC. The Real Flop is over here, by the way. Thank you, The Real Flop. The Real Flop is thirsty. You're one of my the Cat Fans people, aren't you? Either way, thanks for joining. We're going to be doing things I like and things I hate in a second and checking in on the results for New Hampshire. This is a lot narrower than I thought it was going to be, by the way. Anyway, we got to keep going on the news. Even though I think Mogwai has committed to himself that he's going to be here Thursday night because we do a makeup stream again. More electioneering news. This is a follow-up to something we covered a couple weeks ago. Transgender candidate facing disqualification in Ohio now cleared to run despite omitting dead name. I'd like to see the process that they got around that, or if it was just a virtue signal. But regardless. Samantha Henriksen reporting. A transgender candidate vying for a seat in the Republican majority Ohio House was cleared to run on Thursday after certifying had been called into question for omitting her former name on qualifying petitions as required by a little-used state elections law. The Mercer County Board of Elections chose not to take up a vote on disqualifying Arian Childry, a Democrat from Auglaize County who is one of 4 transgender individuals campaigning for the legislature. We're not disclosing her previous name on petition paperwork. Childry, who legally changed her name in 2020, has said she would have provided her dead name, the name a transgender person was assigned at birth, but does not align with her gender identity if she had known about the law. Well, you should probably know about the laws in the state that you're going to represent before you sign up to represent the state that you're going to represent, especially when it comes down to election law. And again, with the transgender thing, and it's like, for me, it's not something that I particularly dabble into or have a lot of interest in, but the policy aspect of it, and like, especially on a state level, when they go to check you out to see if you've got the ability to get X security clearance, Y financial clearance, or everything else. They want to go through your documentation from pretty much the time you started becoming an adult and up. I understand why they would want to do this. And, well, realistically, I'm sure that Ariane, or whatever his/her first name used to be before, probably understands that too. I'm very libertarian on transgenderism, honestly. I know it's a stark contrast from my more conservative counterparts, but if it's something you want to do, I don't understand it. I don't. But it's you. It's not the government's idea. It's not society's idea. I think that there's some problems of rapid onset of it, but yeah. Sexual things, libertarian, and things like that, I've always been really libertarian too. Let's see. Dual Helix says Tesla still collect full self-driving telemetry and transmit it even on cars that aren't self-driving. Yes, that is correct. Flop Pants. Good, she should be allowed to run even if she's named Floppy Phil. Yeah. That's between the voters of her district and her. Amash. Justin Amash. We're going to talk about this for a little bit here. Ex-Republican Amash eyes a GOP return for the Michigan Senate race. I am not a fan of Justin Amash by any stretch of the imagination. I'm going to tell you why, but let's look over the article here. Anthony Adragna, former Rep. Justin Amash, who left the Republican Party following a crescendo of Trump criticism, said Thursday he's mulling a return to the GOP and a jump into Michigan's open Senate contest. Contenders for the seat who are uninspired, unserious, or unprepared to tackle the chief impediment to liberty and economic prosperity, an overgrown and abusive government that strives to centralize power and snuff out individualism, Amash wrote in a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, as he laid out his case for possibly entering the contest. Amash didn't outline a timeline for the decision, but he said the stakes are high: freedom, social cooperation, and human progress itself. It gained national attention in 2019 when he became the first Republican to say Trump committed impeachable offenses, which he didn't. Later leaving the party to become an independent, he flirted with running for president in 2020 on the LP ticket, but ultimately didn't pursue the bid. No, he got kicked the fuck out at convention. He was on the ballot at convention, and they told him no, opting for a college professor who nobody knew who she was instead. The thing with Amash, I liked Amash up to this point. I did. And again, even though I didn't agree with the charges that were brought forward, I don't necessarily fault Amash himself because of the libertarian ideology for coming in and saying, yes, we must impeach, because in libertarian ideology, they consider most presidents to be impeachable on their first day in office. The thing with Amash is, as a representative, not as a senator, but as a representative, because he hasn't been in the Senate yet, his primary responsibility is not necessarily to make the decisions of his own volition. His constituents pick him because they believe he will make the decisions on his own volition that represent their interests the best. But his ultimate job is not to vote his own conscience, it's to vote the conscience of his representation, the district that he runs in. He failed to do that, and the voters of Michigan in his district accosted him for that. Because the Republican voters in that district did not want to see the Donald impeached. When Amash betrayed that trust, they betrayed Amash. And then when he threw the ultimate temper tantrum, leaving them, the people that elected him, without a viable GOP representation, and did so in the loudest way possible, that is why I don't like Justin Amash. And yes, a lot of his policy positions before this I actually liked. But it was the way that he handled it when he had to part ways with his representation. I don't like him for that. And I don't think that, honestly, I don't think he's going to make it in the Senate, but Mogwai says, I would vote for him, but I feel there's something Amash about him. Alright. What are we at for time? Let's go check the timer. We're at 1:47 on record. I'm sorry, we're on 1:43 for record, 1:47 for live stream. So we're going to go for a little bit more. Yes, we are probably going to have to do a makeup stream. So mark your calendars for Thursday. But let's finish out a couple of these more election-related ones. And then we'll look at the border stuff on... I do want to do these ones here, though, before we head out of here. So let's do this last election one. And then we'll do these last two, and then we'll do things I like and things that I hate. Alright, from Como News, Illinois voters pushing to disqualify Biden from 2024 ballot, report says. And they're doing this again by a technicality. And he's still going to win in Iowa, by the way. Voters in Illinois are working to disqualify President Biden from the state's 2024 ballot, arguing he's ineligible to run for a second term, the State Journal-Register reported. Okay, do tell. I'm interested. The basis for their complaint reportedly lies in Section 3 of the Constitution's 14th Amendment. Excuse me while I go beat my fucking head against the wall. I'd keep reading like this, but I can't see the screen from here. Biden was given aid and comfort to enemies of the Constitution and the United States, among other things, failing to enforce the laws of the United States, allowing entry of enemy agents illegally into the country, including tens of thousands of military-age men, and abandoning assets of the United States to the possession of our enemies. The objectors reportedly wrote in a filing. I am so fucking sick of lawfare on ballots. Because that's not the way to do it. I understand that this is downstate Illinois Republicans that are trying to do this and get behind the Chicago machine. I lived in Kenosha for 10 years. I understand how the Chicago machine politics works. And yes, even if they were somehow to be successful, which Springfield's not going to allow, this is not the way to do it. And it goes back right to what I said about the Colorado ballot access, when I actually praised Gavin Newsom of all people in the world. Because Gavin Newsom came right out and said, no, we don't disqualify him from the ballot. We beat him fair and square. If we push him off the ballot, we look weak. We look petty. If I was Joe Biden right now, or Joe Biden's handler, and I had advice to him, I would say, get up on, and I'm going to repeat the speech I've said over and over again. Get up on that stage. Get up on that stage, get the mic, get the podium, and say, "Hey, I hereby, I hear that they want to take legal action to get that dude, that former president, man, off the ballot, man. Look at our successes, man. We don't need to do that to get rid of him, man. Come on. I hereby pardon Donald Trump for any perceived crimes that he's going through, because we got such a strong presidency, man. We don't need any of this stuff to beat him. Now get out there and vote in November, man. Come on. Let's show them how strong we are, how strong our coalition is." Gavin Newsom said it, and he's a moron. But he understands the optics of it. And by the way, Illinois Republicans, you look just as weak trying to do this. Alright, let's finish out with these last two. One of these is, well, local to where I used to live. Of course, we have Patriot, aptly named Front. Does anybody believe this shit anymore, by the way? From Manhattan, currently approximately 90 to 150 individuals identified as Patriot Front are recognized as right-wing organization and advancing towards the 9/11 World Trade Center, located in downtown Manhattan in New York City. Numerous sightings have been reported from the subways into the Oculus Mall. And now towards the 9/11 World Trade Center, New York City police officers are currently keeping an eye out while escorting them, as they work to maintain a separation between any counter-protesters and any other individuals. Okay, this is supposedly the furthest of the far right, the worst of it. Never mind the fact that they mask and they hide their identity. Look, the reason people think that the Patriot Front is a Fed organization, and I am one of them, is because they're in the middle of fucking Midtown right now. And nobody with a thick New York accent has come up and said, "Hey, what the fuck are you thinking about here? You want to fight about this, you motherfucker?" And decked one of them in the face. "Hey, what do you think you are, bringing this fucking shit in here?" And started punching in Midtown. I don't know if you've ever been to the American Northeast, but they're fairly short-tempered. And they don't typically put up with things like this if they don't agree with them. And when I say that I don't believe these people, number one, they're riding a subway among a bunch of other angry Midtowners who are angry over the fact that they even exist. And I don't go down they're so fit they can't be actual Republicans or anything. There are actual non-federal assets in that group. But they're not the ones that are calling the shot and leading the charge. But this march, we actually got footage of them going to their cars afterwards, which had blanked out license plates, oddly enough. And no police officer hassled them for having blanked out license plates in New York while they are being far-right groups. I don't buy it for shit. I don't buy any of this. Not for a second. Nor do I buy, by the way, having lived next to Whitewater for 4 years, UW Whitewater students alarmed by neo-Nazi demonstration on campus. Kendall Keys reporting. Monday's the first day of a new semester for UW Whitewater. Some students are alarmed after a neo-Nazi demonstration took place on campus on Sunday evening. The university said a group screamed racist chants outside of... No. I don't know if that was a neo-Nazi group or if it was a bunch of people that just got done being at the bars in Whitewater. Outside Nealon's residence hall, lighting flares and displaying anti-Semitic symbols. Students caught the display on camera. The video shows 4 people in red jackets. They can be heard chanting, "There will be blood," and projecting a swastika on the outside wall of the dorm. So, they didn't go with their normal MO of spray painting it, so you have to go back and scrub it off. They just projected it onto there. Bad. I'm telling you right off the bat, through the rest of this year, there's going to be very concerted effort because it comes in the speeches. It's politicking. And it goes with the agenda and the narrative that they're trying to push off. That there is a white supremacist around every corner from you, peeking in your windows, watching you. And they're all tied to the ultra MAGA. And they're all extremists, and they're all this, that, and the next thing. It's all electioneering. If there are only 4 people there, 2 of them were assets of some sort or another. And yeah, probably 2 of them were just morons out there that says, "Oh yeah, I hate this group and that group," and my headphones just beeped at me, which means that they're getting ready to die. Hang on, we gotta take care of that. And then we're gonna do things I like and things that I hate. Which this definitely goes on to things that I hate, but well, it's another election year ploy. Let's do some things I like and things that I hate. Let's get a look at the New Hampshire primary first. See where that's going, and then we'll bring the things I like and things I hate tab over here. 32% in. The gap is narrowing, you guys. She might win this. Even though Dual Helix said that we got a concession speech already. Well, no, the not a single woman thing. That's far right, Dual Helix. Don't you know? They got to get them women there in that kitchen. Frank, buddy, your earbud is showing again. All right. How many votes did Chris Christie get? 73 votes for Chris Christie. On the Democrat side, Joe Biden write-in is up to 1,701. The unprocessed is still at 27,092. So, well, we'll probably be talking a little bit about this on Thursday. Alright, let's do some things I like and things that I hate. We'll start, of course, with the rules of acquisition. Every week, we look at the rules of acquisition, which, as most of my morning audience has moved over and hasn't come over except for onto the replay. And I see you guys on the replay too, by the way. But since most of the morning audience didn't come over to the live for the night, we might, because we brought in a different audience for the night, start over on this one. But every week we go over the rules of the hyper-capitalistic Ferengi society. We talk about how they were presented in canon or beta canon, whichever it may be. If they can be used in real life, and if they can't, we criticize them for that. We are on... Where were we? Where did we leave off? Oh, the philosophical definition of insanity is trying the same failed scheme and expecting different results. We are on the 255th rule of acquisition. A wife is a luxury. A smart accountant is a necessity. This is from the accompanying book, the reference book, for DS9, the Ferengi Rules of Acquisition. And as far as the on-screen and on-canon forms of this, the Ferengi society was extremely misogynistic, so realistically they did look at their wives as property until the Nagus came down and changed the rules and allowed women to participate in commerce. I don't know if I can agree with this one or not. I guess I'm telling you, this is me being just a few months shy of 40, unmarried, and I can really say that I don't know if I want to say a wife would be a necessity, but I know that my life would suck a lot less if I was hitched. But I will say, definitely for a smart accountant is a necessity. When I was living in Kenosha and broke, I found what I thought was the least expensive place in Kenosha, and really honestly it was the least expensive place to go get my taxes done in Kenosha. And I mean, I still go down there. I live, what did the ticker say when I got done? I live 270 miles away from Kenosha right now, and I still go back to the same accountant that did my taxes when I lived there, because she's really good. I strayed once when I moved, and I wound up having to pay in a whole bunch that first year. I've had to pay in with my current tax accountant before, but it's never been by a whole bunch. I am a little bit afraid that it's going to be a whole bunch this time through, because I made a lot of money this year. But a smart accountant is a necessity. Whether that be your wife, in a lot of homes, middle class and working class, that is the wife. The man brings home the bread, especially in the older times, like when my grandparents were growing up. To an extent, to when my parents were growing up too. Husbandman went to work, brought home the paycheck, and just handed it over to the wife, and she took care of all the bills. Sometimes they are one and the same. It's sometimes the same person. But yeah, I'm not going to come out and say a wife is a luxury. It's definitely something that I really think my life would be doing a lot better with if I had been hitched at some point. Although maybe not to any of the three that I have been engaged to. I don't know. That's just me spouting philosophical at this point. The 255th rule of acquisition. Let's look at a couple things that I like. Can you buy scratch tickets with lithium? You mean latinum? I don't think you can. It would have to be pressed in gold. Alright, things that I like today. I started on the Mega Man series again, which for me, it's not something new. It's something that I loved growing up. But when New Year's Eve rolled around and Steam had their big sale, they had all 4 Legacy collections for Mega Man. Well, actually all 6, because they had Battle Network too, but I didn't pick that up at the time. But they had all 6 Legacy collections for Mega Man the Mega Man X collections, or I'm sorry, the Mega Man Legacy Collections 1 and 2, the Mega Man X Legacy Collections 1 and 2, and the BattleNet Collections 1 and 2 were all like 70-80% off on Steam. I think they've gone back to normal price at this point, but I was a big Mega Man fan growing up, and I have played up to 8 because of the original Mega Man Legacy Collection that I had on PS2, but they split them up a little bit differently in the Steam version. Mega Man Legacy Collection now is 1 through 6, and Legacy Collection 2 for the original Mega Man games, rather, is 7, 8, 9, and 10, and then I also got Mega Man 11 while I was in there, because that was on sale too. The final chapter in the original Mega Man series. The X Collection, of course, is 1, 2, 3, I think 4 on the original, and then X Collection 2 is 5, 6, 7, and 8. Which I didn't get the second Legacy Collection, or X Legacy Collection, yet. Because I know I have hours of gameplay just on these ones, plus what I do on stream on top of it else. But I did take my first foray into 9, which they went back into and did the original 8-bit artwork, even though it came out for Wii. They were able to shove a lot more gameplay into Mega Man 9 by going back on the graphics. But I like the nostalgic style, I really do. And they did box art in the more nostalgic styles too. So we're going to watch the trailer for Mega Man 9, which I've played 2 stages from and failed miserably at so far. Classic Mega Man is back. The year is 20XX. Beliefs now that Mega Man has once again put an end to Wily's plans for world domination. Robots start going wild all over the country. For starters, I'm going to do something about it. Yeah, they did add a currency system to it too, which wasn't present up until, well, they did have a currency segment in 7 and 8. I'm so excited to play this game for the first time. And then 10 and 11, which 11 they did go into the, they bypassed the 16-bit. They still have the kind of classic chibi style of it, but they didn't go in and try to do full motion 3D everything else and realize it. It is very much a classic style game, and I like that. I really do. So Mega Man 9, and if it's still on sale, or even if it's not, and you've slept on the Mega Man series, it's on Steam right now. Go check it out. Some other things that I like. LeVar Burton. LeVar Burton is a classic case of don't meet your heroes. Big fan of Commander LaForge in Next Generation. I like Next Generation a lot. Big fan of Geordi. But LeVar Burton, once he got out there and got his opinions out there, he's kind of insufferable. Well, now he's going to sit back and rethink a lot of things because, well, he wants to hold a lot of people in the past responsible for what their ancestors did, and then we found out what his ancestor did. NBC News reports LeVar Burton learns he's descended from a Confederate soldier on Finding Your Roots. Chrissy Callahan reporting. LeVar Burton got hit with a 1-2 punch while tracing his family's ancestry on Tuesday's episode of PBS hit series Finding Your Roots. Burton rose to fame as a child actor in the TV adaptation of Alex Haley's Roots, the miniseries that host Henry Louis Gates cited as an inspiration for the PBS show, and then went on to star in Star Trek Next Generation and host The Reading Rainbow, which were very cool things that LeVar Burton did as a younger guy. On the PBS show, he discovered a hidden family secret. Burton learned that he had a great-great-grandmother on his mother's side, Mary Sills, was raised by a man that she thought was her biological father, but wasn't. Burton knew Sills when he was still a young boy. Sills was the biological daughter of a white farmer named James Henry Dixon, who had a family and a wife at the time of her birth. And she was the other family on the other side, Burton said in shock. "Were you expecting that? Did you have any idea that you had a white ancestor?" Gates asked him. Burton, 66, shook his head and laughed. No, I had no idea, so Granny was half white. Wow, he said. Then Gates revealed that Dixon served in the Confederate Army as a teenager. "Are you kidding me? Oh my God, I did not see this coming," Burton said. Gates said Dixon most likely never saw battle because he was part of the Junior Reserves, which was used mostly for guard duty. However, he noted that Dixon still served in the Army, whose goal was to protect slavery. We can sit and debate that to death, by the way. Then later in life, Dixon had a child with a woman who was born into slavery. So, as far as this goes, I do hope that this causes LeVar Burton to actually sit down and rethink, especially the idea of your ancestry determines who you are. It does to an extent, but you still have the free will to do whatever it is that you want to do. Some of that's going to come from the way that you were raised, some of it is going to come from genetics, and some of it's going to come societally. And I actually don't wish any will to LeVar Burton. It's funny to laugh at, but I don't wish any will to him. I hope he sits down and has a nice time of reflection. And maybe doesn't think that the entire world is the Confederacy 2.0 and is out to get him. I don't think it's going to happen, but maybe he'll see something off of this. Let's do a couple things that I hate. Passenger trapped in airplane bathroom for entire flight gets note from attendant. "Sir, we tried our best." Ben Cost reporting. Thought sitting in the middle seat was rough. A SpiceJet passenger had the crappiest flying experience ever after getting trapped in the lavatory for an entire flight. A passenger unfortunately got stuck inside the lavatory for about an hour, a budget airline said in a statement, addressing the involuntary downgrade. The unnamed flyer reportedly went to use the lavatory shortly after takeoff in a 1-hour, 45-minute night flight from Mumbai to Bengaluru on Tuesday, Indian Express reported. So this wasn't in our country. However, when he tried to leave after doing his business, the door wouldn't open due to a lock malfunction, effectively trapping the passenger inside the bathroom per the statement. Hope he brought his phone with him at least. Or had something to read. The crew and other passengers desperately attempted to free the flyer from the outhouse arrest, but to no avail. As a result, he was relegated to the Great Honey Bucket in the sky for nearly the entire flight. Now, we're starting to see a lot of this here. And this is part of the reason this landed on things that I hate. There is some push to make flying an inhibition, to make people not want to do it. I don't know if it's so they stay in the city so they don't do the carbon footprint thing or what the deal is. But, first we have the emergency door blow off in the middle of a flight. And I'm not going to go down the same arguments that my more conservative friends do. I promise you. But we had a door blow off in mid-flight. We've got this kind of thing happening. And yes, I understand that accidents happen. But I also know that there is a push to stop people from expanding their carbon footprint. unless they can purchase those sweet, sweet carbon offsets. So I don't know what the story is behind this, and I do feel bad for the guy. I'm a little bit claustrophobic myself, so I don't know. I might scream if I was in that position. What else do we have? I'm going to save these ones. I want to do a little bit more reading on these ones here. But let's do this one here. Ancient zombie virus trapped in Arctic ice could unleash deadly new pandemic. Tangible threat. And this goes on to what we were talking about with the new variant that is supposedly 100% lethal in mice. I like the anthropology. I like the fact that people come back out and study this kind of stuff. Realistically, the genetic difference between human beings from the time that this virus was frozen and now means that it probably is not going to have a large amount of effect. But we see these, and they always pop up, again, right in time for an election year. The melting Arctic permafrost could unleash ancient zombie viruses and trigger a catastrophic global health emergency, concerned scientists say. We now face a tangible threat, and we need to be prepared to deal with it. It's as simple as that, geneticist Jean-Michel Claverie, professor emeritus at the Medicine and Genomics at Aix-Marseille University, told The Guardian. Experts are already working with the University of the Arctic and International Education and Research Cooperative on establishing and monitoring a network to help identify cases of diseases caused by ancient microorganisms early on before their spread can spiral out of control. The network could also provide quarantine facilities and medical services for those infected to help minimize a potential outbreak, including preventing contagious patients from leaving the region. So-called Methuselah microbes, also known as zombie viruses, are capable of remaining viable for tens of thousands of years, encased in the frozen soil, which covers nearly 20% of Earth's northern hemisphere. I don't think you have anything to worry about on this. Now, if an infected sample of something of this winds up making its way to a certain biolab in the Wuhan region of China, then we might have to sit down and have a conversation about this. But as far as this is, as it is, I don't see a major cause to shut down society. Okay, Mogwai has questions, probably about the bathroom lock. You know that was a shitty in-flight movie. Nice. Helix says, over the past 10 years, more than 50% of weddings I've been in have ended in messy divorce. Yeah, if I'd got married to the second girl I was engaged to, I would be on that statistic. I can tell you that right off the bat. Pooh got trapped in the bathroom. I don't know where you're going with that one, honestly. Alright, two more. Outrage as NFL announces Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing will be performed at the Super Bowl for 4th year in a row. From James Gordon. The NFL is coming under fire after confirming the Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing will be performed at the 2024 Super Bowl. Named the Black National Anthem by the NAACP, that one word at the beginning of there, I don't know if YouTube will ban me over that one, so I'm not going to throw that one out here. In 1919, the song references slavery. In the hope of liberation, it was later adopted as a rallying cry during the Civil Rights Movement, according to the NAACP. I don't think it was adopted that early. In fact, I don't think it was adopted as a rallying cry until about 2014. The song was first played before NFL games in 2021 and has also been performed at the last 2 Super Bowls. But the song, which will be performed this year by singer Andrea Day, has been criticized by some for dividing audiences instead of unifying the country, which that is the exact reason for it. When you call it something like the Black National Anthem, the express purpose of it is to divide. Well, the other national anthem, that's all for the white people. This one's for the black people. And I've never, like myself, been convinced that our national anthem has to be the Star Spangled Banner. My big criticism of this is we need to have the same song, and we all need to agree on it, because we are united. If we are going to sing under an anthem, which on pageantry I'm not even a huge fan of that, but if we are going to sing under one anthem, it should be the same anthem. We all get screwed over by the government equally. We all live in the same country. We all pay the same taxes. And we all also have the same situation where nobody in the world has dared to attempt to cross our borders in a hostile manner for 200 years. I don't even care if you make this the regular national anthem. It's kind of catchy. I've listened to it before. But it's just, we need to have the same song. That's what a national anthem is. And the last one, coming to us from CNN. At least 16 cemeteries in Gaza have been desecrated by Israeli forces, satellite imagery and videos reveal. I'll read this very briefly, and I'm going to put the stance on why this is on things that I hate. Jeremy Diamond, Mohammed Darwish, Abir Salman, Benjamin Brown, Gianluca Mezzofiore for CNN reporting. The Israeli military has been desecrated at least 16 cemeteries in its ground offensive in Gaza. A CNN investigation has found leaving gravestones ruined, soil upturned, and in some cases, bodies unearthed. In Khan Yunis, in southern Gaza, where fighting escalated this week, Israeli forces destroyed a cemetery, removing bodies, in what the IDF told CNN was part of a search for the remains of hostages seized by Hamas during the October 7th terror attacks. Now I have the hiccups, coming right into the end of the show. CNN has reviewed satellite imagery and social media footage showing the destruction of cemeteries and witnessed it firsthand while traveling with the IDF in a convoy together. The evidence reveals a systemic practice where Israeli ground forces have advanced across the Gaza Strip. The intentional destruction of its religious sites, such as cemeteries, violates international law, except under narrow circumstances relating to that site becoming a military objective. The legal experts told CNN that Israeli acts could amount to war crimes. They absolutely could. Let's talk about Israel and Gaza for a moment. In the very beginning, Israel had a very good optics situation to come back in and do what it is that they felt that they had needed to do for a while. From everything and every part of intelligence that we have right now, what happened on October 7th was a completely unprovoked attack that killed thousands of Israelis from an outside force that mainly targeted young people, women, and children who were defenseless at the time. And you had the optics going into it to start with. I was very much on Israel's side at the beginning of it, partially because I thought that this was a defensive strike, this was a defensive capability, and a bit of a show of power at the beginning to say, hey, you don't want to fuck with us. But it is now January 23rd. Which means it has been 3 months that this has been going on. And the optics war on Israel's side is fading fast for them. They're regular people down the middle that once they find out this is still going on, because the news has started to cover it up, just like they did with the Ukraine, once it started turning into a slog. But the people who are still paying attention are starting to realize that, hey, this is getting a little bit lopsided, and these people are basically destroying, making uninhabitable areas where people are going to have to inhabit at some point here. Israel, you are losing the optics war. And when you do something like this, it does not help you. And I know I said this in the Russia-Ukraine thing way back in the beginning before it dawned on me even that this might just be an independence push for the Donbass region. It might be time to come to the table, you guys, and actually sit down and talk. Israel, we got to do something different. We do. Because I'm looking at this. Anti-war me, I'm looking at this and saying, hey, enough is enough, dude. Once you're starting to screw with people's grave sites, at what point do you look in the mirror and say, are we the bad guys here? I will never stray on my position that the initial strikes coming out of Israel were justified after what happened on October 7th. But the longer you slog this on, especially in the completely lopsided position that you're in, number one, you risk yourselves turning into the monsters you came to try to eliminate. And number two, now you've got Houthis that are sitting here, eager to go to your cause, with Western nations saying, hey, maybe. You've got Hezbollah, you've got the Iran Guard starting to come into your cause, and you risk pushing this into a regional war. And given the fact that it's the Middle East, if this comes into a regional war, guess who's going to wind up being on the stage for that? If you guessed the United States, you're probably right. All right. That's enough for this. I'm depressed. There's some very superstitious writing on the wall, too. All right, let's head out of here for the night, you guys. Before we head out of here, let's give one last check over to the election results. Let's have a look over here, shall we? 44% reporting on the Democrat side, 65.9%, 28,509 votes are unprocessed write-in. A lot of those are going to wind up here. The Joe Biden write-in has surpassed Marianne Williamson. And again, I suspect that once a lot of this gets processed, then that's all going to go for Biden. Why don't I have this up on the screen? There we go. That's all going to go for Biden. Or at least the vast majority of that. On the R side, still a single-digit gap. 53 to 46-ish. So about a 7.1% gap between the two of them. That's way too tight for me. I'll have to go back and see if there was an actual concession for this. We've got 41% reporting over there, and we will see again whether or not the war-loving neoconservative side of the Republican Party gets put to bed or not. All right, now let's head out of here. God, I hate that we get caught up on war. I am so anti-war, and, well, given the state of the world, it's understandable why we get into so much war. Yeah, get your draft cards ready, says Mogwai. Ceasefire. Oh, yeah, that's the other big write-in over on the New Hampshire side. All right, let's throw some music up and let's head out of here. Music courtesy, of course, of Stephen Ignoramus. Go check him out, the Daily Ignoramus. Daily. Chris Christie has more votes than Vivek. Yes, he does. You are right. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming by, hanging out here. Flop No More coming and joining over on the Twitch side, too. Thank you for that. I hope I didn't scare you away too much. I hope you'll still talk to me in the other chat that we participate in. But regardless, I'll be back here tomorrow to see if I get completely fucking bodied by Seymour on Final Fantasy X again, like I did last week. Holy crap, did I get bodied by that dude. I was not prepared for that. I did look a little bit into strategy, and I think I might know how to go back and take care of that, and we might be able to do it where we're at. But I mean, second to last part of the game, you guys. Maybe still by January? I don't know. It still might still be the first week of February, but we'll see what happens with that. Otherwise, it does look like we'll have a probably short stream on Thursday. We'll look at some of the Iowa results, New Hampshire results. They should all be in. Plus, talk a little bit more about border and foreign policy as well. So look forward to that. And Friday, since I've been sleeping, we will do Fallout Fridays that night as well. And I don't have to work on Friday, so we can maybe try and marathon it too. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll get a nap in before. We'll see. But take care. Have a fantastic night. Hug your family. Get a good night's rest. Grab some more food. Well, maybe not this late. Don't do that this late. But take care. Have a good night. We will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Take care. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.